So first of all, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about where we are and what actually this business is?
My name is Jordan. I'm one of the owners of Flagship Tattoo, but I also own JHB Tattoo Removal. We're down Park Road in Peterborough.
Okay, so that's a dual business of putting the tattoo on
Yep,
and removing it. How long
yep.
have you been here? What's the
So we've been down Park Road for about 3 years now, just over. But most of us have worked in Peterborough for maybe 10, 15 years, some of us. Yes, we've been here a while.
Okay. Just concentrate on the tattooing itself at the moment. What are the sort of trends that are on at the moment? What sort of things do people like? What sort of things are fading away, if you like, in terms of what they want?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that you see coming through the studio at the moment, people use websites like Pinterest and Instagram a lot to find like the new trends that are coming through. Tattooing we always refer to as being very similar to haircuts. Everything goes in circles. So no tribal back at the moment, but yeah, you see a lot of more bespoke designs. People want a lot more custom tattooing these days than they ever have done before.
Oh, okay. So something that may specifically something that probably means something to them or something from their background, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like memorial tattoos, maybe, or even like friendship tattoos, or the famous name of each other. We see a few of those, but yeah, it's a real mixed bag these days. I wouldn't say there's one big trend at the moment.
And I presume that you have got a few like regular customers who decide that they like something on one arm and they want it on the something similar on the other, or something like that, I guess.
Yeah, we end up getting customers that end up, coming for a good couple of years. Maybe they get two full sleeves and a full chest, and eventually they run out of space or money, and they pick it up again later on. So yeah, we do get the regulars as well.
Is it? Because a lot of people tell me that once they've had a tattoo, because I don't have any. Once they've had one, there is a kind of an addiction to it, and they like the sort of yeah, they like the whole sort of genre, and it just become like an addiction. But one that's enjoyable, if you like.
Yeah, I think that with tattooing, I think that when you come in and you get tattooed for the day, you can end up finding a lot of stuff that you like, and you leave with an end product generally. So all of that pain and sitting there for a few hours is paid off with something you get to look at, and as we said about memorial tattoos or something like that, it can really mean something to somebody. It can be really powerful.
Just as a matter of interest with regards to tattooing, what's your background? How did you get into it? I presume you were good at art at school and things like that, were you?
So I don't actually tattoo. I've just always worked in tattoo studios. My dad was a tattooer before me. He
Okay.
tattooed in like Hunstanton and Wisbech from the 70s onto the early 2000s. And I started working in tattooing when I was about 16, so nearly 20 years ago.
Okay. So, what's the process of removing a tattoo then? Because it would seem to me that that's quite an intricate, tricky thing. I mean, you feel free to answer for as long as you want with that one, because that's quite a
Yeah.
sort of the science behind it and things.
So in tattoo removal, we use lasers. I use two of the best lasers available on the market right now. Uh, the process is different for everybody. So what we're doing is we're basically breaking down the pigment underneath the skin. A lot of people think you're pulling it out. You're not. You're actually dissolving it beneath the skin. And your body then attacks the pigment and takes it away. So everybody's different. You could have the same tattoo on 10 different people done by the same artist on the same day, and everybody would respond differently. So a lot of the heavy lifting in tattoo removal is done by your immune system, and eventually, yeah, it passes through your system and gets dealt with. But everybody's different. On average, we say about 10 treatments for complete removal.
And treatments,
Yeah.
and I guess does that depend on the size of the tattoo or
Yeah, of
where it
course.
is, or
Absolutely. So there's a lot of variables in tattoo removal. Location's a big one. So things like hands and feet react a bit slower due to lymphatic drainage, being able to move the pigment. And yeah, that person's health, age. If the tattoo is a cover up, there's a lot of variables in tattoo removal, but a UK average is about 10 treatments.
so cover up. So in other words, one they put over something else that was previously there. So what is there, more ink there, or is it just?
Exactly, yeah, it's more heavily saturated, so there's more pigment there, and it can just take a little bit longer to break that down.
And you mentioned age there. I presume there's some people who come in and after 20 years of the same tattoo, they've just decided to get rid of it for some reason? I mean, is that trickier? Is it to do that, or?
I would say actually in this day and age, I see more newer tattoos. People that have maybe had a tattoo for 6 months. I've even had people walk in that the tattoo is still covered from where they've just had it done. We see a lot more of that these days than we ever have. But yeah, you still do get the older tattoos. Generally, they are easier to remove. If you've ever seen somebody with a tattoo over the age of 20 years old, it's probably quite faded and blurry. Your body's already starting the process of trying to get rid of that. So yeah, that does help with things.
But people coming in and they've still got the cover on it that it hasn't even been healing yet, and then they wanted it removed. I guess it's, yeah, people have regrets. Now,
Yeah.
do people, like sometimes you see in cliches of people getting things done when they're drunk or when they're, on other, and they just decide this really wasn't a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite few and far between. I've quite a few times in the last couple of years, I've seen tattoos that I would quite happily have on myself. They're actually done to a really good quality, but that maybe that person got it done at a time when they weren't in a very good place, or they were coming out of a hard relationship, or any of these reasons, and it doesn't really represent who they are now. It can be a spontaneous decision, and that's something I say that tattoos really shouldn't be that.
Exactly. So it could be somebody who was suffering at a time in their life or something
Exactly.
like that, and they've changed it. Well, talking about that, you run a process called New Leaf. Tell us about that. How does that work?
So the New Leaf project, I take on 5 people for free tattoo removal. It's completely free. And generally what I try and cover are radiotherapy dots, maybe people coming out of domestic abuse situations, people that are leaving prison with visible tattoos that want to rejoin the workforce. Many things across that really, human trafficking, and yeah, so I take 5 people at a time. I see one of them to completion, and then I'll maybe put out a post saying I'm looking for somebody new to join up for it.
Where did you come up with that idea? I mean, it's fantastic, but where did you come up with it?
So I've always liked the idea of doing charity work, but with a laser, it's quite difficult. Every time I turn it on and use it, I'm basically spending money. And I've always wanted a way to make that kind of viable, to kind of give back to the community, and to work with people, to help people, get to a better place in their life. I think some of the most impactful customers that I've had are the people that leave with those sort of stories, and it makes a real difference to. And to feel good in your job when you're doing something is great. It's great to help anyone, but when something like a tattoo means so much or is so detrimental to that person's well-being, that removing it can really help them feel like they're turning over a new leaf or starting a new chapter. I feel like that's a really good feeling to have. Why wouldn't you do it?
And without like identifying anybody, the sort of people that you've dealt with, what sort of people are they? I mean, you've mentioned them. Is there any anecdotes that you've got about them?
So I've done a lot of radiotherapy dots. They're a big one. They are a dot that are tattooed on when somebody has breast cancer, and they're usually tattooed one in the center of the chest and one either side. And they're done by the consultant, I think, just to help them line up the treatment correctly every time. And that can be quite a big one, even if you're treating younger women, from early 20s all the way up into their 60s. It can have a massive impact on people's self-confidence. And to know that those people can, I think I had one lady before compare it. She had one in the middle of her chest, and she said it always looked like a crumb. She said I looked like a messy eater. So she was very happy to get rid of her crumb, is how she explained it. But yeah, I have had some quite impactful stories through it. Some of them can be quite hard to hear, yeah. But I had a lady who had done homemade tattoos on her arm when she was 13. And she had no idea about removal until she walked into a tattoo studio in Bury St Edmunds, and they sent her my way. And this was before the New Leaf project, but I actually stopped charging her a couple of treatments in because her story seemed really powerful. I didn't feel very comfortable taking money off her. But yeah, we got her back to skin, and she left me a couple of really nice reviews. And she felt like she could go shopping again and have her arms out when she was doing the food shopping, which she hadn't done in about 40 years, 50 years. So a long time, yeah.
They're just things that people take for granted, aren't they? That that you and I would take for granted because we're happy with ourselves. But this lady carries that with her, and now she's you've made her happier. When did you come up with this idea?
So yeah, it was a few years ago now. I'd seen a couple of other clinics in maybe New Zealand and America that were doing similar things, generally in a lot of relation to sort of gang members maybe coming out and wanting to restart. We don't really have that culture here. So it was just a way for me to feel like I was giving back to the community, and getting to help people is my favourite part of the job, is the people. So getting to work with people and get them somewhere better is yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
And how do you find them? You said generally it's a social media post or something like that you
Yeah,
try and bring people in. Is that right?
yeah. There's a contact form on my website you can go and fill out, and that will generally get picked up by me, and we'll have a little chat, and yeah, we go from there. Some people obviously don't meet the criteria. It has to be quite a specific criteria to be met.
Of course, because then people could take advantage of you, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, carry on.
There's a bit of trust there, I don't generally ask for any incident reports or crime numbers. I'm just going on someone, the feeling that you get when you meet somebody, if they're being honest with you or not.
I was going to say, I should think that you're pretty much attuned now to why somebody would want to do it and for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as it's absolutely brilliant. Just as a final thing, obviously you're very central Peterborough.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering about your thoughts on Peterborough as a whole, as a city, not necessarily that tattooing, but that as a whole for retail and the vibe around Peterborough at the moment. Are you positive for it as a whole, or?
Well, that's a long question.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. That's one that's thrown right out. I asked that to everybody. So,
good. Yeah. So I'm not from Peterborough originally. I'm from Kings Lynn in Norfolk. I moved here when I was about 21. Over that time, I do think that the city has got a bit worse in some respects and better in others. I kind of get the vibe from a lot of my customers that live here that they would like just more shops, more things to do. We see a lot of accommodation going up, but I don't really know what the end game is here. It always surprises me that we're so connected to so many other places in the UK. A lot of cities are an hour or 2 hours away, yet you've got no reason to come here, in all honesty. The shopping has probably got a bit worse. Yeah. And the city, in my opinion, hasn't grown as much. And that was part of the new leaf. I feel like if you complain about Peterborough, well, you lose the right to complain if you're not trying to do anything to make it a bit better. And that was one of my things, to try and make it a bit better. My wife is born and bred here, so she often would tell me off for complaining about it, as she loves being from Peterborough. She loves it as a city, and it's given me a lot. It's given me a career and a livelihood, and I've made some amazing friends, and some of my family do live here now. But I just feel like there could be more. And I don't know where the blame lies there, whether it's with local council, or is maybe Peterborough is just not the place to attract these big businesses and big shopping and all of that. But I do think something needs to change.